And we're live. All right. I am Tim Wilde here for a Wilde interview talking about Steve Jubber's collection. And there's no one better to talk about Steve Jubber's collection than Steve Jubber. How are you doing, buddy?
You got him, Tim. Always excited to talk to you about, well, toys in particular. But yeah, it's great to shoot the breeze, man.
Yeah.
I'm flattered. You take such a keen interest. What did I do to be so lucky?
Because you are excited and enthusiastic and passionate, and you bring the fire and the enjoyment of toys beyond just like I'm a collector and have a bunch of plastic bubbles on my wall. I don't have bubbles on my wall, but like you are so invested in enjoying your toys. And I wanted to talk today about your collection. You've been away from your collection for a few years now because of COVID and because of your living situation. You moved to Australia. Let me make sure I understand this right. You moved to Australia. We're away from your main collection that was in South Africa at your mother's house, right? Your parents' house.
Yeah.
And you've now been reunited for a brief period of time for the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
And
an extended holiday. It's like Christmas every day, Tim, honestly.
And I know you've been talking about on your podcast on G.I. JOBURG a little bit about your coming home, some of your reactions and some of your feelings about it. And you just kind of, hinted at a few things. And I know this was a big deal for you because over the last couple of years, there's times that you've addressed things that you missed about not having your collection available to you. So I was like, I'm really curious about some of the details about that. So I wanted to interview you now that you're home. You've had time to process and be overexposed maybe to your collection. And I want to know, as you know, I'm interested in how you care for your toys. We've done conversations about that. So I'm curious about what was it what was your process when you came, when you were reunited with your collection? What details did you go through? Because you mentioned like within the first day, it felt like you threw out how many O-rings were broke. I'm like, did you go inspect every single toy? I was like, holy cow, because I know you have a vast collection. So I just want to kind of walk through and just hear about your preparations for leaving your collection, what you kind of went through, maybe withdrawals or anything while you were without your collection, and then the process of being reunited, and then what you're gonna take back home with you. But do I kind of have the chronology right? You're going to be going back.
Some questions, Tim. How should we unpack it first?
Well, I want to talk about before you left. Okay, so you have a massive collection. I'll put the collection for link or the link for your collection in the description as I did before. But Steve has a. Steve, I'm just talking to you. I don't care. This is for me. This is my personal indulgence talking to you, Steve. I don't care if anyone ever sees this. I don't need to put on a show.
We might get one or two viewers and a couple of comments in the section below.
Yeah, here and there. So you have a major collection. Yeah. So I want to know, first of all, when you were leaving, when you left, you knew you were going to be moving for a period of time, right? Were you leaving indefinitely, or was this a trip that you got suspended because of COVID?
It was a work trip, and when it became quite apparent that the work was probably going to be terminated because of this looming pandemic, everyone was being sent to their respective home bases. Cape Town is my home base, at least on paper. But I asked management to send me to where my wife lives,
right,
which was North Queensland in a town called Townsville. Very original. Thank you, Australia. But then again, I live in a place called Cape Town, so originality is not in the waters, it seems.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I made the snap decision, like in the light of travels becoming more and more restricted. Let me rather go to where my wife is. We can work things out and just stay as long as possible, as long as my visa would allow in Australia. So I had very little stuff packed. In fact, I had probably my C team of clothing because I fully intended to just ditch my, whatever rags I had on my back in Manila where we were. During the process of that tour. So I'd packed extremely light. I'm a light packer anyway, but even for me, this was very light packing. I only had taken one or two figures just as, I suppose, fiddles, just like curiosities to bring
Yeah.
with me, to have set up next to my laptop when podcasting. I didn't have any major plans to move a collection over.
Hmm.
Fortunately, while in Australia, and even before getting to Australia, while I was in Manila, the channel received donations from our friends abroad. And
Yeah.
so that allowed the piecemeal stuff that I had with me to steadily grow to the point where I could actually shoot reviews or play motions while I was in Australia. I had no intention of duplicating my Cape Town collection overseas.
Of course.
I think that's kind of wasteful.
Right.
And also, like, I have an emotional attachment to
Mm.
the original figures that I already own. Like, having
Yeah.
duplicates of them suddenly puts you in this big question mark of like, well, which one do I like more? Like, this one's got slightly better condition, but this one I have so much more history with.
The war
So
stories.
I think I'll always favor history over having mint specimens. Anyways, let's jump back to
Yeah.
getting back here. You asked
Oh,
about O-rings.
Yeah, I want to
Oh yeah,
ask.
do you have questions on that, Tim?
Yeah, a little bit. I just want to know, first of all, other than Shockwave, is one of the few. Who else did you take with you, out of curiosity?
So I had my childhood Hydro Viper, which I wound up reviewing while in Australia. I had my childhood Snake Eyes version 4, which is the one with the bright orange goggles.
Yeah.
I had a life. No, I didn't have a lifeline. I had a few Iron Grenadiers figures because I felt like that was the direction that the play motions were heading into, and so I at least had some principal baddies for Shockwave and Snake Eyes to fight. Oh, and I had my hit and run. And I think that was it, man. In terms of vehicles, I had 2 like wind up and go or pull back and go vehicles. It was the Cobra like helicopter pack and the G.I. Joe scuba pack. I mean, random. But those were my vehicles.
Were those for play motion intents, or that's just something you just want to grab?
Look, they occupy very little space.
Okay.
But they're little pocket rockets that you could strap to a guy's back and essentially have vehicle play without the bulky vehicle items. I mean, I could talk to you at length about toy traveling and the sheer size of things that I've moved via planes in the past, but I kind of always stress myself out unnecessarily when moving a lot of plastic in either the plane hold or even the overhead bins. Like, anytime someone gets up and messes with the bin that my toys are in, I'm like up like a rocket. Like, oh,
you're like
nail biting. Like, do not shift that duffel bag too much because this fragile vintage plastic.
Around.
Yeah. Basically, like, can I assist you in taking your bag down and getting a toothbrush out or whatever you need?
You're quite the gentleman, even if it's another dude getting his carry-on.
Yeah, I'll step in. Very unusually, this total stranger will assist. He must have some ulterior motive. But yeah, look, having done that plenty in the past, I didn't want that kind of stress on me when I was basically packing extremely light, very Spartan. So yeah, it was basically these vehicle packs and some figures. That was it. Oh, and a Desert Fox, because you got to have a Jeep, right? A Jeep is just pushed down the hill.
Yeah. You don't want to
strike. So that was it.
Crush. Now, when you left, how long did you know you were going to be gone for?
It was going to be 3 weeks.
3. Oh my gosh.
Turned out to be 3 years.
Holy cow. Okay, so with that then, as soon as you get there, but after you were there, COVID hit, your trip got extended, obviously. What kind of things did you start missing most? Like, were there things you were like, oh, if I knew this was going to happen, here's what I really wish I had brought with me? Or what were your biggest regrets in not having with you?
Ooh.
If anything.
Tim, you can never take it all. I guess my biggest regrets might have been, I don't know. I kind of was always anxious about how I'd left things.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that in a second for sure.
Yeah. So you're constantly worrying like, oh, I could have packed that thing a little bit more securely, or that thing was a bit close to the edge of the shelf. That rather minty new toy, which I'd actually taken out of its box, is completely going to be covered in dust by the time I get back, which is a pity because you can never really get back that new plastic squeak.
Yeah.
You can give it a soapy bath, but if you'd
Yeah.
actually taken the toy out and a mint and sealed box toy and assembled it yourself, you
Yeah.
know what it feels like to have that factory fresh plastic at your fingertips.
Wow. Sorry, they're up doing something to my my cooling unit. I'm on the top floor of my apartment
Oh
complex.
no, you're gonna start sweating, dude.
Great. So that's nice and professional and unscheduled.
What's the temperature like in Salt Lake at the moment?
The weather?
Yeah.
It started snowing yesterday. There's your. Oh, you can't see.
Well then,
here.
it's not cooling that you're worried about. It's heating.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I have a swamp cooler on my roof that's coming. So they might be finishing covering it for this season. I don't know. I thought they did that a couple weeks ago, but this is the season when it's going to start snowing soon. So they got to be ready for that. I don't even. Okay. So you're gone. So if you had known you were going to be gone, how would you have left it differently? And the other question, did you have your is it something you could have had your mom go in and when you're like, okay, I'm not going to be there, can you go check on this or anything she could do?
Look, it was fine. Like I had to prep the room for basically in case I was going to be away for an extended period of time. I'd prepped it for basically the arrival of my brother's kids who would stay in that room. Like if they'd come to visit Granny and Grandpa, they would sleep in my childhood room. So like all the bottom shelves were vacant, all the drawers were emptied. Like everything had kind of been squashed up into the other, like the top.
Yeah.
Top
Oh, I
shelving.
saw. Yeah, you did show a picture of that, and you talked about how everything was condensed instead of like displayed like by year as you normally have it displayed. It was all crunched.
I want things to be able to breathe, Tim. I want a little bit of air around every vehicle, but in a pinch, you can kind of really ram everything like gridlock and basically stick figures on top of vehicles, like they're riding. I don't know. Some kind of ramshackle army.
So you did that. You're the one that you put them up on the shelf like that. I had the impression that your family did that to move them.
Oh no, it was all me, man. I don't know. Look, it's not that I don't trust them. I just think that I'll obviously be that much more meticulous. And if anything does go wrong, if anything does fall from the shelf and shatter into 1,000 pieces, I have no one to blame but myself.
And you had a picture of those shelves, and you have big like curtains that come down and cover over them. I didn't.
Yeah, there's a roller blind that I can then not only drop down in front of the stuff that I don't want children to have access to, but I then take a dowel and screw the dowel in to like lock the blind in place. Yeah. So even if you try and use the little rope system to raise the blind, it won't.
Yeah. That makes sense.
You do what you can, but still, like the kids got into other stuff, and the kids will be kids. They'll pull out a stool and climb the shelving till they reach the top, take stuff down. Like I'm still missing a flak. There's a flak cannon gone. I found one of the leveling legs and the occupant. It was Short Fuse who was riding it, but the gun itself
gone. Did you?
I think some child might have wrecked it, and either my brother or sister, feeling rather ashamed, maybe hid the remnants. And
I'll never notice one cannon missing.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's me talking about. Like, of course, I noticed. I noticed on the first day when I found Short Fuse like in and amongst some die-cast cars. I was like, okay, here we go. Brace yourself, Steve. But fortunately, beyond that, it was just snapped O-rings, really. And yes, Tim, to answer the earlier question, I found the initial assortment because they were just figures that were sort of posed, so they were easy to spot. So but now I'm into the vehicle drivers themselves. So I'm opening hatches and finding, oh, okay, he's separated from his legs. Nice.
So you can just see like half cut off bodies, just casualties all over the shelves, and you're like, there they are.
Buddy, it's so amusing when you see like like okay, this is in Australia, but I found Starduster. He had his back on a tomahawk seat, but his legs had kind of slid away from it. But yeah, the torso was still stuck there, like manning the
The
machine
fins
gun.
up.
I got back here and I found Baroness in pieces, but at her head was a Hydra Viper's crotch. The Hydra Viper was on the top shelf, but his crotch had kind of fallen down and like landed on her face.
That's
Nice.
funny. So you didn't go
Yeah.
through and
Don't
actually
tell Destro.
Yeah. But you didn't go through and actually manhandle each one when you first got back. You just those were the ones that were just obviously broken, and then you went through checking drivers and things to find just what, because you said you were working through some of the plastic in your.
I'm still working through it. I've done an overview, but I can only really get down to it after I've put my son to bed and had supper.
Yeah.
And being here, you want to be sociable with the grandparents and make conversation. So between the hours of 10 p.m. and midnight, that's my G.I. Joe time,
So I was like,
or my Tim Wilde time.
Yeah.
And so that's when I've been kind of meticulously taking things off the shelves, giving them a bath, like, because 3 years worth of dust. Like, I never really had this problem because I would always routinely handle the G.I. Joe stuff. Okay, the off-brand stuff would get dusty because I'm not going to be handling the core or the Power Team Elite toys as much. But the G.I. Joe stuff was in regular enough rotation. Sometimes it's late 90s night. Sometimes it's an early 80s kind of action figure appreciation. Sometimes it's the later 80s. But everything got its opportunity to be played with, handled, whatever. And so that keeps the dust from really accumulating. Now, however, I'm dealing with dust on like the action figures themselves, which is I'm so unaccustomed to that. Like, the action figures never had this patina of dust, and now they do.
Yeah. And you mentioned that too. It's not just like dust lightly, like it snowed all over them overnight. It was like it's like in the joints. There's like buildup that just happens. That is you, and you talk about how much that is worked away from the oils from your fingers or whatever as you play with them regularly. And I found that with
just
my collection.
Regular handling is enough for the figures.
Yeah. My collection was like New Sculpt and kind of beyond from the 2000s. It was when I bought a bunch of mine. And I have a lot of figures, but not as many vintage. But even those, if they go in storage as I'm moving around and don't get to them for a long time, it'll be like a year and I take them out. I'm like, wow, it feels like an old toy now when it used to feel brand new and squeaky, because it's because I haven't been working with them and playing with them. So when you said that, I was like, oh, you know what? He's absolutely right, because I've noticed that when I've put mine in storage for a while. And I love you guys have, and this is kind of a newer recent thing you guys have talked about multiple times on your podcast, is like talking about that you don't want your toys to live in bins. And I remember who was on your show, and they were talking about how they started selling off parts of their collection if they never played with it or used. I can't remember who it was. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. And I was thinking like, oh man, I'd have to get rid of most of my collection because so much of it is in totes. But now I'm like, as soon as I get some room, I want to have it out, not for display purposes, but for accessibility. So I can just grab them and play with them instead of like having to set up this big, huge Armageddon battle and do like a Helm's Deep thing with all my stuff that takes me like a day of preparation and then a day of cleanup. Okay. So let me ask you this. So, because you talked about when you got home, you saw your collection, it was almost like it was overwhelming. I do want to talk about that in a second. But just before we move on from dust, what would you do differently with your collection now that other than having the covers down, what would you have done differently if you knew you were going to be gone for 3 years?
You know what? I kind of had it prepped. It was ready. It was ready. I hadn't realized it at the time, but I don't think I could have done it any differently.
Okay.
I toyed with the idea of like selling stuff off.
You did?
Where I would have more space to accommodate the things that really. Yeah, I think good enough.
Wow.
Stop me from stressing out too much.
Wow. So, because you've said before, I think in our last conversation, or I mean, I think it was off camera, that they're saying, because I think we're talking about your collection, modern era, and like the rise of Cobra figures and stuff, and those awful things, and you're like, you don't like getting rid of stuff because they come back around, and you never know if there's something you're gonna want later. But so you toying with the idea of selling pieces, that's shocking to me, actually. I don't know.
Look, I have bulky things that are non-Joe, and their only function right now is that notion of like, what if I need a third faction? What if I need like just nondescript tanks, planes?
Yeah.
I've got and here's where things get interesting. Like, I've got one or two like accurately scaled toys. They're by a company called Blue Box.
Okay.
It's an accurately scaled Black Hawk, which is enormous. It's so big. It's got a massive footprint. If you have the rotor blades on and you spin it, you actually create a draft. Like it's like a fan.
Wow.
So something like that, I don't think I'll ever use because I would never need that degree of realism. I'm quite happy with the cheap and cheerful, like generic little like Black Hawks made by World Peacekeepers.
Yeah. Those are cool. Those are cool.
They are good. Yeah. And well, when I bought them, they were pretty inexpensive. I see the prices on them have increased substantially. But
yeah,
they make them in such vast quantities that there's always a deal to be had somewhere if you search for it.
Yeah. So when you came back, was there anything when you first? Well, I guess tell me about your. I can only imagine your anticipation, like getting closer to your house, coming down the driveway, jumping out. Kim, you get Eliot because I got to get inside, kind of a feeling.
I probably got some pictures. You could probably flash them up if you wanted to, or I can find them right now and just throw them in.
Yeah,
but it was a pretty jubilant day.
I'm sure. Yeah.
That's Eliot grappling for a low shelf. Me beaming. Kim pulling the luggage in. Shortly after that, I went down on my knees, took my son in my arms, and wept. Kim joined me on the floor, and it was just a jubilant moment. I couldn't hold back the emotion at that point, and yeah, I was just happy. Happy tears, man.
Now, I was introduced to your channel after you were married because I know you had some like wedding videos and stuff on your podcast or on your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah,
Kim was fully aware and exposed to this room, right? She knew full aware. There was no surprises for her coming home to it. Is that right?
There was never any surprise in our relationship, Tim. When she met me, I was living in an apartment in Singapore, and I had just, as a birthday present to myself, bought the I forget what collection it was, probably Saga collection at just the big Imperial Walker.
Yeah.
Like the thing that looks like a giant gray robotic dog, basically.
Yeah.
A Doberman.
Yeah.
A Doberman in plastic. That thing was like basically lurching over the bed. And that's how Kim came to know me, as the guy who had a gigantic robot dog in her boudoir. I mean, fortunately, she knew a thing or two about Star Wars, so it wasn't totally alien to her. Like, she was hip with the Force, but yeah, look, she had always accepted my quirk, fortunately.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it. But yeah, sometimes someone knows that their partner might be into figures and they may look at it as a collection, but to walk into your bedroom, it might be like, okay, this is an obsession. This isn't a hobby. And then I don't know. And you got to find the right person that can accept that and deal with it, because now they have to be partnered in on future purchases, and hopefully someone that is invested enough to maybe contribute to knowing what you want or what you need to. I'm not talking about you and Kim necessarily, but I've met people.
It can be a very excessive hobby if you let it, but I think even at its most excessive, it's still a pretty cheap hobby.
Yeah.
And environmentally friendly. We are essentially recycling old plastic, giving it
Yeah.
new life, new appreciation, keeping it out of the landfills.
To the
So
point
go
you're
us,
not
action figure
shoplifting,
collectors for the win.
but if there's something missing, you've expressed that you're like, well, it might as well come home with me than go into the garbage. You find something in
And
the store incomplete.
another credit to Kim is she appreciates my passion.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yes.
my joy brings her joy.
Yeah.
So that's if you found a partner who can appreciate, not necessarily appreciate the toy collecting, like get down on the carpet and go vroom vroom with the tank with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you've got that, amazing. But if you just got someone in your camp who like can appreciate that this stuff is cheaper than therapy, and it gives you that enjoyment, that dopamine hit, that that access to your childhood.
Yeah.
It's a powerful emotion, and it's one that we should try and seek out. Like
Yeah.
there are very valid reasons behind collecting the stuff that we collect,
Yeah.
and I think it's a very healthy hobby to have.
I
And she
I
certainly agrees.
I agree. I liked how when you and Rob did the video unboxing that donation that you had, now she was
So
like, "You
good.
guys seem under enthused," and you're Rob was like, "Well, you only can handle so much stimulation. It's kind of like you're just kind of in shock. You have to kind of just digest it slowly, and then you go through and play with it later." Like, I thought that was kind of funny. But she cares, excuse me, but she cares about your passion, that she's excited for when you're excited. She's like, "Oh, you don't seem as excited as you should be." As a bystander, she
Gee,
said.
thanks for calling it out on the show, Kim. Honestly, we're trying to play it cool for the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was funny. Okay, so you're there. Was there anything that I know you're very attuned to the point that you know what canon was missing and which figures were now out of place. But was there anything that you got back, you saw, other than how overwhelming your collection was, that you're like, I don't need to buy anything for the rest of my life, I'd be fine? But was there anything that you saw, you're like, oh my gosh, this just generated an idea for a future play motion, or is there anything that you saw that you kind of like forgot, not like forgot that you owned, but like forgot like this is actually really cool, or anything that you kind of became reacquainted with that you kind of weren't expecting? Did you have any of those kind of reactions?
Always, Tim. Like you're always reassessing things and having new light shone on things that you'd kind of maybe dismissed in the past.
Yeah.
If for whatever reason you were lukewarm on a thing, if you then come back to it after some time has passed, maybe you start seeing things about it that are actually worth praising.
Yeah.
For instance, I had sworn off the GI Joe Raider as a toy that was so frail it was not worth even touching. But if you are aware of a toy's fragility issues and you can work around them, you can appreciate the fun parts of it. And something like the Raider, it's gargantuan. It's this big behemoth, 4-tracked beast of guns. What's not to love? It's such fun. You just got to know its quirks. Similarly, in that Greek donation sort of laundry list of toys, there was something that I'd never played with, and that was Destro's Dominator. Ah, the Raider. Yes.
Yeah. For
boy.
Full disclosure, I had to look it up because I am not as cool as all of you.
Those side guns are attached to very frail mushroom pegs, and the mushroom pegs are actually attached to the chassis. They form part of it. Oh, that's a Lego construction of the Raider.
Oh yeah.
That might actually be Magnus Lauglow's. It's on Flickr. It's entirely possible.
Huh.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So the side guns, the mounts can crack off very easily. The canopy is a disaster waiting to happen because it's just these two thin, transparent bars
I see
that snap. Oh yeah, hopeless.
Yeah. So this is something you reappreciated? Is that what you're saying? Like when you saw it?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I had played with this Destro's Dominator, which is even more frail, and if you could just work around the fragility issues, and also appreciate that if stuff gets broken, that's sad, but in many respects, it's inevitable. If the thing is designed poorly, breakages are inevitable. You need to get through it, get past it, accept it, and make it fixed. Like find a
Yeah.
workaround, improve the toy, improve the design. And we now have the tools and the wherewithal to make fixes.
Right.
So
So
yeah, just bite the
did
bullets and
you?
accept that some toys are meant to be broken.
It's a yeah. This we're gonna stop just for a second and talk about it because when you guys started talking on your last episode about the Dominator, you were throwing out your feedback. I love the design. I think it's a really cool idea because you have a pilot and then Destro, and I said this is like his flagship. There's a battle going on, air and ground. He can fly in, and then it's really got really cool armaments on it, and then he can land and then command the tanks or whatever. You do whatever you want with it. But I agree, and I never worried about this until mine broke. But one of these pins on the side that hold the tank treads that go up into the under the undercarriage, like they're so weak, and that's why mine works only right now because there's the pins on the bottom to hold them in place as a helicopter. That's how I have to play with it now because it doesn't work as a tank because it's so fragile, so fragile. So your points are accurate. Its execution lacks, but it's a cool design, dude. I love the concept of it. It's really cool. And like Rob said, to have a transforming vehicle, it's awesome. Go ahead.
My enjoyment of it stems from the fact that it completes a collection that I've always wanted to have of the toys featured in the G.I. Joe video game for Nintendo.
Yeah.
Like that was my G.I. Joe media. That was the first G.I. Joe media that I kind of connected with. Because it was before I'd read the comic book and before I'd watched the cartoon. I had this video game and we had some of the toys from it, but not all of them. And anything that we didn't have, we were like, "Ooh, what is that? What is that?" So it was like a catalog in pixels. And this was one of the featured toys. It's a sort of a enemy vehicle that harasses you when you're in the desert level with rock and roll. Yeah. And you have to take out 3 cannon emplacements on it before it flies off. And yeah, man. So having it gets me closer to completing that set of toys that were featured as pixels in a video game from my youth. And yeah, so it has redeeming quality from that.
Yeah.
And if you keep it in helicopter mode, you're winning, baby.
It's fine. Yeah, it's like that. That's the helicopter mode. I like how the tail extends and can retract. Like it's kind of cool. That's not right. This guy doesn't. Well, I don't know. My cannons don't stay down like that. They're locked underneath. Anyway, propellers are weak. Those don't. Those are pretty floppy. The propellers are.
I seem to have gotten a good set of propellers, so it might be a case of your mileage may vary. But my props.
This is the one I have.
I have this. Oh no! Ooh, the 2000s remake. Boo!
That was my access. I think the original is way cooler. But
so it's the first time I noticed the different cannon placement on the 2000s version.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so that's what mine looks. So when the carriage goes
it's
under,
more flush.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I like the helicopter mode. This is kind of weird. I don't like this. How they like hang down.
Yeah, well, it then gives it that weird profile of kind of sitting at an angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. Yours is an improvement in that regard.
Yeah. Except this stupid on top of its I hate this thing. This stupid cannon. Anyway, who cares? I love the design. The canopy opening 2 different directions that's kind of cool. I don't know. It's interesting.
Ooh, so your version has like open sides on the canopies?
Yeah, mine does. Does yours not? Nope, it doesn't. Yeah.
So you say those guys are getting a breeze.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work when you're flying around up in the air in a helicopter. Like, well, I guess helicopters do have open sides a lot of times, so I guess it's fine.
Hey man, it gets hot.
Yeah.
Ask any Chinook pilots. They keep that back door open to create a little bit of a draft because man, it must get very hot in the cockpit.
Destro's wearing a lot of leather, so I think he's probably perfectly comfortable. Anyway, let's get off this. It's a cool design. So this is my next question. I know while you were gone, you also got a Havoc while you did a review of that, and you got one of those in your possession. You weren't a big fan of it, but you were kind of intrigued. You did an unboxing, and Kim was like, she seemed to enjoy it more than you did when you opened it. But between that and some of these other things, my question: when you came home, are there things that you brought that you planned on leaving? So that when you go back to Australia, you can unpack with more space, or did you leave everything in there, or leave everything in Australia?
That's a complex question. Are you asking, did I leave my Australian stash in Australia?
Yeah. Or is there things?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't plan on playing with this. I want to take it home, just put it with my main collection, so I have more room to get more later.
So the only stuff I brought back was stuff that was destined for Robert and Paul.
Okay.
So duplicates of duplicates. Figures that I not only have in Cape Town, but also in Australia. Anything that I have in excess of that, go to the boys. Also, I have 2 incredible Mauler tanks, courtesy of Joe Mauler Works.
Yeah.
The one is remote control. That is destined for Paul because he expressed an interest in being able to use a remote control to control the tank. Rob expressed an interest in having a stock Mauler, just regular battery operated. So he's got that one. Over and above that, it's just things that have, as I say, accumulated to the point where, like, I'm covered. I do not need any more of that particular version of the toy. I mean, sure, how spoiled am I to have duplicates of duplicates?
Right.
I'm only too happy to allow that to further the collection of the other members of G.I. Joburg, because I guess, I mean, the lofty, almost impossible goal is for us all to have, quite sizable collections, like have all the classics.
Of course.
And Rob actually is the big focus right now, but he's steaming along. I mean, he's now got a Mobat, a Mauler, he doesn't have a His tank yet, but he's got a Havoc. He's got a Thunder Machine. Bits and bobs. He's got the 1992 G.I. Joe headquarters, which I don't have. And I'm happy for him to have a base.
He has it.
All his. And he's got exclusive claim on that one.
I've told you that's my favorite.
You like it, yeah?
Oh, I do. I love it. I think it works so well as an armored wall, like a main entrance. Like I've described for you before, this is my Helm's Deep. Like, this is unpenetrable. I mean, it's very penetrable, but you put this between couple pieces of furniture, like that's your box canyon. Can't get through that thing. And then there's all the bay, the jail, the command center, like all that stuff behind it. It's super fun to play with. I love this thing. But
base play is something that I also gravitated towards as a child, because there's something very desperate about defending a base. Like, this is it. This is the last line.
Yeah.
If the enemy gets through here, we've had it.
Yeah.
So you get your back up against the wall, and it's time to pull together. It makes, I suppose, as you described, it's very much a hell.
It's pretty fun. And I remember this box art got me when I first saw this. I was like 11. I saw this. I was like, oh, this is so exciting. Like, there's so much that you could do with this. But I never treated it like these guys standing up shooting over the wall. I never treated it like it was like a wall. I was like, no, this is a covered bay. This is the Endor bunker. You can't penetrate this thing without getting through the door. So I would just imagine all that other stuff. But I never treated it like it was just a wall you're shooting over. But it's super fun. Anyway, that's cool. So Rob got one? I don't know if I heard you guys talk about that.
Oh, this was something we got when we were actually in the States. So,
okay. He took that back on a plane?
Oh, buddy.
Oh, boy.
Between us, we had the 92 HQ, a transportable tactical battle platform, an MCC, a Raider.
Are you serious?
A Conquest X30, a battle wagon. Okay, those are the bulkiest.
These are huge.
I can recall. Yeah, those are the big boys. And then so many smaller things. Like Paul had a stun, and Rob had the Sand Scorpion vehicle from I think 1993. We all had bits and bobs. Oh, I had a water moccasin. So yeah, we all had. Oh, and I had a mauler. I mean, craziness.
You guys shared some of that, but a lot of that was, I understand, it was lost footage on your GoPro that you weren't able to do the coverage like you wanted to when you went to Joe Fest.
Yeah, man. The bloody memory card got corrupted. Geez, me and technology, right?
Yeah.
I have great lofty goals, but technology always manages to knock me down a few pegs.
Yeah. Well, back to your collection. So the opposite. So you came home with donations for the boys. Is there anything that you came home and you want to take with you now that you know you're going to be separated from your collection long term? Is there anything that you've missed that you want to bring back?
I always had a hankering for like some of the real classics. Like Shipwreck. Just to have a Shipwreck to hand as the wisecracky little Han Solo sitting on your shoulder, basically. It's such an appealing figure because it's so different. It's at odds with everything else in G.I. Joe. This guy's dressed in blue, bell bottoms. He's got a goofy little hat. Or not even goofy, it's more Donald Duck, isn't it? But basically he's so anachronistic and weird, but that just adds to this almost superheroic quality that, like, regardless of what these guys look like, they're Joes and they're exceptionally skilled at what they do. Even a slacker like Shipwreck, he somehow manages to win the day. So that's a figure that would probably make a trip with me. Version 2 Snake Eyes.
Okay.
Not that he's ever been my favorite, but he's
iconic.
Classic.
Yeah.
So it's tough to shoot around that. It's tough to use a substitute version. You kind of want to use numero uno, or numero dos, as it turns out. Gosh, vehicle-wise, I don't know, man. Like I say, I'm wary of doing bulky transits if I can avoid it. I mean, coming back here, 2 maulers is already going to stress you out a little bit because do you disassemble them? Do you risk having them intact? The cannons, are they going to be okay? Are you going to put stress on any of the plastic? But on top of that, I think, gosh, I had bits and bobs. I had like a swamp fire and I think I had a jet. Did I bring a jet? Jets are always the worst. You don't want to stress the plastic on those wings, the tail fins.
Yeah.
Bad news, brother. So if I go back with just figures, that'll be okay. Because I've got a healthy Aussie collection. And it's going to get a little healthier because come next year, I think the HasLab Sky Striker will arrive. That's going to be delivered to my Australian address.
Yeah.
At great cost. Boy, oh boy. They love to slap hefty taxes on the Aussie importers.
I'm excited to see your coverage of that because I'm not going to get one. I missed out. I didn't know that I didn't have to, because I didn't have the money for it back then when it was available. I didn't know that it was, because I could have anticipated it later, and I didn't know that. So I was like, oh man, that would have been fun to get. But because I was more excited about the figures. And I don't know, not everyone's excited, especially you're not, because it's not that same touch in the plastic. But I'm excited about having new O-ring sculpts. I don't care, even though they're not as good as originals as I share. Every time I get one, I send you pictures. I'm like, look, here's what I like and don't like. But you're excited about the vehicle and you're passionate about the Sky Striker. I know that. So I'm excited to see what you like and don't like about the new one.
Yeah, so my criticisms of that toy, I mean, it's setting up a high bar for itself.
Yeah.
As being the ultimate expression of the Sky Striker, or so we've been told by the hype.
Yeah.
If it falls short of even the original in some respects, that's going to attract some pretty harsh criticism from me because I want this to be the best of the best of the best. I want it to like eclipse any other Sky Striker I have. I don't think it's likely to do that.
Yeah.
I have a horrible suspicion that I've paid half of what I spent on my USS Flag for a jet that I won't even like.
Would you sell it? Because you expressed
Would I
when you did the bidding.
would I
Was
get
going
my
to
money back
bidding.
though? Like
Yeah.
it's already, I'm already, getting it in Australia. I'm already buying it at a vastly inflated price relative to what people are paying in the States. Like people are going to want to have it for that price or around that price, which is impossible. So say if it's being sold for like 400 US on eBay, and the asking price was originally 230, I think.
Something like
At 400 US, I'm still making a loss. So
Wow.
gross. I'd have to wait. I have to wait like 5 years before it's appreciated enough.
But
I
the
don't know.
figures, like
We'll
you
see.
even said when it
You can flip the
was,
figures. Yeah, I suppose.
yeah. I don't know. You said
I
like,
am a rather uneasy seller of things. I mean, you said the reason already. Like,
yeah,
I might want it later, or I might want the set to be complete later.
yeah, yeah,
And if I've kind of sold things off piecemeal, and I don't know why I have that compulsion, but I do. Maybe it's unhealthy. Maybe I need to learn to let go of these bits and pieces. Like keep the thing that you want, get rid of the rest. And
yeah,
hey, if you want it later, maybe it'll come back around. I mean, there is going to be a ceiling to this stuff, surely.
yeah.
When and I feel it coming already with classified, which is kind of reaching the saturation point of the figures. Once the demand has finally been met, I know people in the States are still waiting for their bloody Tiger Force Outback. It's a joke. But once the demand is finally met, and it will be met, and people start getting kind of a little bit over this hump of like, yeah, this stuff is cool, but it's not giving me the kick that I used to get.
Yeah.
The market is going to be flooded with loose classified figures. There are a lot of them floating around, and I don't know if they'll have the same longevity as the O-ring stuff. Similarly, these new O-rings, they're going to be trash one day.
Yeah, and it's sad to me
traded
because
for peanuts.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm excited about that because I want them all because I like the figures. That some of the sculpts there's problems with them, as I share with you, but they're still, to me, it's still a new O-ring, and the Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes were amazing. There were such improvements on the not the sculpt, but like the design, the pegs and everything, the screws and bolts. I thought everything worked really well. They gave you so many weapons. They gave you several versions, Snake Eyes weapons on one. The weapons, Storm Shadow's weapons, he could hold his swords and everything. Like it works really well.
Don't manipulate those nunchaku too much.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't do that.
I think I might need to roll back slightly on what I said. I think with the O-ring stuff, the production numbers are so limited that maybe it will never be abundant.
Yeah,
like this will never be lying around in lots because you could only get them through Hasbro Pulse. That a choke on the demand. It's not like they were selling them at Walmart.
Exactly.
So I guess the demand for them will always,
whoever paid for it. There's no clearance aisle for these, and so they're not going to be like that. And the only thing I don't really care about the Sky Striker. I've never been a big jet guy like you, because I can't work jets into my play. If I'm attacking a base, jets do flybys. Like, they're not like, I don't have a slow motion dogfight over my base, which is why that scene, I gotta throw it out. And the Force Awakens, that scene when the X-Wings first come in over the Cantina battle and over that forest planet, whatever they're at, wherever there was, and that the Poe comes in and he's like leading the Force. They're coming over the lake. It's all awesome. They hit the TIE fighters for the first time.
Oh, it's so good.
It's great. The cinematography, the emotion, the build up, and finally you get to see the rebels coming in. They're not the rebels, but whatever, the resistance. And then you have that one shot that everyone loves where you have Poe in one camera shot flying up, and he just shoots out like 5 TIE fighters, like just do. And I'm like, okay. You just spent 20 minutes earlier with Rey in a dogfight being chased through a Star Destroyer by one of these amazing pilots of an X-Wing or a TIE fighter chasing the Falcon. But Poe just like nipped like 4 out of just like in one quick motion right over the battle. I'm like, these things would take my
hell of a pilot.
Yeah, I was like, no, and people were like, that's how good he is. I'm like, no, that was lazy. That was so cheap. Anyway, that whole thing, that goofiness, to me, that's what playing with a jet over my GI Joe battle would be like, because like these things are flying so fast, it'd be like miles of battle going on, like in Top Gun and stuff. You don't see one location as you're flying around in a dogfight. I just can't do it. I can't invest. Helicopters are different. They're slower and they can move slower and they can go up and down and interact with the people, not just an airstrike flyby. I can't get it to
I
them.
don't know, Tim. I think that like if you want to play jets, you can always play it with one toy.
Yeah.
You know, from briefing to the pre-flight checks to taxiing to takeoff to basically flying. Like you could be in a darkened room and just create in your mind the atmosphere of being at 50,000 feet.
Yeah.
And going on a solo mission. And like because aerial combat happens beyond visual range,
right?
You don't even need another jet to fight. Like you're basically evading missiles, dispensing chaff and flares.
Yeah,
you're doing everything that you need to do to complete this play pattern by just holding one toy.
Right.
That's the beauty of jet combat. Like you don't need to involve the ground stuff because that's way down there. It's minuscule.
Exactly. But that's where my focus, that's what I enjoy, is playing with the land battle and figures doing stuff.
Right.
You take a jet, now it's a whole different environment.
Oh, well, Tim, we'd be playing with each other without playing with each other. I'd be just like focused on my jet.
Yes.
You'd be down there on your knees, like, ooh, what's happening above us? And then it'd be game over, man.
Yeah. Now, what you just described is how I would play with, if you can see up there, I have an X-Wing. I have like 3 of those from the Power of the Force collection. Or back in the old days, my Bat Wing. That's pretty cool.
Yes. Cool. Is there a Kenner Batman in there?
There is. You can't see it. And I have the Batmobile.
Oh, that Azrael figure I recently found. It's Rob's, and I gave it back to him. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That's a cool figure. He's got a good. He doesn't have. What's it called?
He's got a flamethrower, man.
Yeah,
wicked.
Yeah. What's the word? Points of articulation. He doesn't have much, but the pose he's in, you can do a lot of fun fighting with it just from
that clawed hand.
Yeah, yeah. And you can do chops and strikes, the big blades. He's awesome. And the wings come off, so you don't have to worry about the fragility of that. But anyway, jets, I can play with like that. I can get an X-Wing and a TIE fighter like the original Star Wars, where just them kind of coming in just slowly on each other because they're in space. You can imagine whatever speed you want, but an X-Wing coming in on a TIE fighter or vice versa. I can enjoy that. But jets, like in our atmosphere, I'm like, I'm lost. I can't have like like you and Rob in your first. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I love watching when you and Rob playing around on the beach when you filmed the Atlantis Factor Part 5 or whatever. Or you did the gorgeous the way you shot it, shooting the cockpit, and I know you guys were just like running around. We'll fix it in editing. I love your stories about that. That's great. I love watching you do it, but you don't have a base underneath your dogfight. It's just the two of you up in the sky. It's not just. I just don't.
It should be, man.
Yeah,
a duel of equals.
Well, so going forward, as soon as when you head home, you don't have anything specific besides a few figures you're gonna take with you. Do you have anything that you're gonna do differently when you leave your collection, or are you just gonna the way you had it before is good?
Okay, so it would be a terrible shame if I've bathed every single one of the toys that I hold dear and gotten the dust out, only to have to repeat that again.
Do you disassemble every figure when you bathe them? Or you just wash them like that?
No. And I'm not washing the figures because while I do like to rust the divers so that I can put them in water without any kind of real qualms, I wouldn't want to ruin absolutely every single screw of figures that would never go underwater. So I'm not going to bathe the figures. I'm going to just, as I say, handle them, and that'll lift the dust. It's not so built up that it's actually like packed in.
Yeah.
It's just a light kind of dusting of it. So yeah, regular play will be enough for the figures. The vehicles are going into a bath. I'm not disassembling anything. I'm just taking a sponge, or in some cases a toothbrush, and just giving them a good once over. I think I'm going to start using more soap, because the problem with dust is that it has a tendency of becoming sticky.
Yeah.
Not gummy, but just
You
sticky to
mentioned
the
that.
point where like water itself isn't enough. You need something that'll
Yeah.
cut through that. So regular, just a bar of soap or even dish soap. It's
Yeah,
mild enough.
I thought that was interesting when you mentioned that in your first podcast back, and Paul was talking. You were talking to Paul about. I remember talking about using alcohol or vinegar or something, whatever it was you're talking about. And I knew as soon as you said that, I never thought about it. I knew exactly what you're talking about. That kind of stickiness that some plastics get over time.
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah,
start
the dust, yeah, water itself and even light scrubbing isn't enough. Like you need something to cut that. Like it's a kind of a grease almost. Yeah.
Does that start working up the decals on your vehicles when you do that?
Well, here's an interesting point of difference. The American decals or stickers, whatever you prefer to call them, the adhesive does age and dry and crack, and the stickers just fly off. The European stickers, for whatever reason, has a different adhesive, and
Really?
the sticker quality itself, I suppose it's a vinyl. It's kind of waterproof as well, so it's quite resistant to water and scrubbing. But here's something that's even more remarkable. The European stickers can be peeled, reapplied, and still look mint, like
I'm
flawless.
jealous. I'm jealous.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I wish there had been some kind of like, I don't know, just like communication between the two Hasbro factories.
Here's what works,
and got them both on the same page, because yeah, it's frustrating to see stickers.
I was
float
gonna say,
to the
I
top of
know
the-
how particular you are with decals, and I'm the same way. If I don't get it on the right exact spot, the sticker going right in between
Terrible.
this wheel and this engine part, it needs to go on that at the right angle and match on the other side. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I almost prefer, like you've expressed, if you get a used vehicle that they're already put on there because you don't think about it. If I mean, unless it's way off, then it annoys you. But I'm the same way. I'd rather some kid in a factory putting them on there, so I don't even think about it. I'm just like, well, this is how it came. That's it. I don't need to reapply. But if I'm responsible for putting it on there, it has to be perfect, and I hate it.
Well, my father used to put the stickers on my vehicles when I was too young to do it.
Yeah.
Made the discovery some years ago that he got pretty creative with the stickers of my Cobra Wolf. But fortunately, it was a European wolf, so I just very carefully pulled up an edge and then tweezed it off and was able to reapply it without any kind of that whitening or the residue lifting away. The adhesive somehow is still on. I don't know what they used, but it just it's remarkable.
It's like those old
peel and reapply. Wow.
When we were kids, kind of those maybe I'm a little older than you, but like they used to have those it'd be like a little board, and you might have like a Batman set or something. You'd have these little flyable stickers.
There was a name.
Yeah.
There was a name for them, but it's escaped me. And G.I. Joe had one of those sets. And that's where I think there was a version of Snake Eyes that had it almost looked like Steel Brigade coloring. I think he had blue pants.
Really?
Or blue sleeves. Was it color forms? Is that what they're called?
I don't remember the name at all.
That's something else. Anyway.
But that's how I'm envisioning where you're describing these stickers. It's almost like that, where they don't actually adhesive. And now that's like, and those could stick on there. Sometimes you'd have to kind of grind at those to get those off to move them around, but they're replayable.
Well, provided you don't get any dirt or like hair or like lint under there. The adhesive is still good for a reapplication. I wouldn't put that to the test and then peel and reapply again ad infinitum. You're eventually going to run it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they are misapplied, you're good for one peel and restick.
Yeah. So you're gonna sponge them. You're gonna clean the vehicles, not wash every figure. You're gonna work those out with your hands, and you're still going through those as you're
Yeah, I've
slowly.
done the years 88 and 89.
You're going chronologically.
Well, no,
course.
I started in the middle because those were the
Oh,
middle
okay.
shelves. And also I had a hankering for those vehicles primarily because this space reminds me of those vehicles the most. That was my initial collecting years.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of those vehicles are my childhood ones. My
You're
Warthog, my
sorry, to be clear,
Thundercloud.
you're talking about in your home. This is where you would play with these toys, and this is what you're associated. These vehicles playing around in your living room or in your yard and all
Oh,
that. That's what you're
yes.
saying.
The
Yeah.
Cobra Bug and the Warthog and the Hammerhead. I had the Tiger Sting, which was the vamp, basically.
Yeah.
Gosh, a handful of others. Things like the septic tank, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to bother with cleaning that. That can stay dirty. With a
What were
name
you-
like septic tank.
Back to your impression when
Right.
you first got there, like what were you most excited? Was there anything particular you were really excited about that you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen my, I know it wasn't the flag, but oh, the flag in 3 years. I can't wait to handle it. And that's the first thing I want to play with. Was there anything that really stood out for you? I know it wasn't the flag.
Huh. Like everything I took out
Mhm.
had such resonance.
Mm.
It's hard to single something out. Look, and add to the fact that I was also coming home to a whole pile of swag from this Greek hall.
Yeah.
So like I was very curious, and I did not touch that pile until Rob was around and we shot that video.
That's awesome.
So that was a voyage of discovery, like seeing the condition of the stuff, how well it had been preserved or not. I mean, the interesting thing about that collection is, the vehicles are all absolutely dead mint, pristine. They'd kind of been taken out, assembled or partially assembled, and then seemingly put back in their boxes, and they had remained there for 30 or more years.
It was
The
impressive.
figures, however, were very played with.
Oh, really?
And deceptively so, because these children were meticulous enough to keep all of the plastic bubbles, put the figures back in the bubbles, and then like, what is it? Paperclip the bubbles back to the cards. So
have you heard of that before? I've never heard of that.
Never. They display like carded figures. But if you look on closer inspection, you will see broken thumbs, broken crotches, loose joints, paint wear, missing accessories. Like they are played with collection, but they display like a mint on card collection. It's very cool. I love going through them because I've got them all in a box, but like stood up. So you kind of like, oh, it's an amazing feeling. Let me tell you, to be handling carded G.I. Joes.
You're like, need it, want it, need it, need it, want it, need it, need it.
Yeah. How cool.
That's fun.
Yes, they are. It warms my heart that they've all seen plenty of battles.
That's cool. Wow. So is there anything, nothing you're going to take with you, but just some figures, nothing overwhelming that you're excited to play with? Are you just like so anxious
Let's see. I might be swept up by emotion and be like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to see you again, Cobra Bug. Please come with me. And then there's Steve with his backpack containing a Cobra Bug, very gingerly putting it into the overhead storage locker. Yeah.
That's awesome. Do you keep your weapons on your figures' hands when are you going to leave weapons in hands like posed as you go this time?
Yeah, I always typically do.
That bugs me. Oh, it not bugs me, but I'm like, when I look at my vintage, especially that I've repurchased recently, they're holding their weapons, but I'm just like, I just look at those thumbs. I'm like, ugh. But you've convinced me. You've made the point that is what kind of keeps them that little bit of give, that hardened the old plastic.
It's tricky to say though, Tim, because that give had a lot more give when the plastic was fresh.
Yeah.
Buying a collection now, and let's be honest, like when you're buying from a dealer, chances are they're going to be selling you toys that are of a fairly good grade.
Yeah.
Which then prompts me to think they weren't really handled or played with Like they didn't really get that stretch to their thumbs back when
Yeah.
the plastic was young. So inserting accessories now into a figure's hands that are pretty mint, it's
Scary.
terrifying. And so you're absolutely well within rights to be concerned.
Because I never play with them. Because I'm just like, oh, it's like a model. I just don't want to touch them because they're so fragile. To me, I look at them and they're fragile. I just have a few. As I've started recollecting over the last couple of years.
Boys.
What's that?
Cool, man. I just saw the Renegades, so I was like, yeah, the boys.
A couple of them. I have a couple of Mercers, but I don't have Taurus. Is that his name? I don't have Taurus, but man, you good eyes. It's all blurry. I was doing that really fast. You like see him. You're just
your webcam is strong, man.
But yeah, I just look at him. I was like, I just don't want to touch them because I don't want to risk anything. Locking the weapon under their arm. I'm like, so scary.
Some weapons are better manufactured for it than others.
Yeah, but you convinced me, and you're right. These are not there. There's gonna be supply. They're not gonna not be available forever. It's just I need to just get over it and play with it and enjoy
it. Within reason, man. Nothing sucks worse than a broken toy and that instant regrets of like, oh, really? I should not have done that. So yeah, we're always playing with our own emotions, but that's why played with toys are so important. If you can find markets that sell like beaters, that should be your bread and butter, man. So you can keep the minty ones on your shelf. The ones that you can handle, the ones that have paint wear and have, hands that are the grips are worn a little bit, not broken, but just worn. That would be absolutely my bread and butter if I was living in the United States and had access to like toy shows. Because that's the best, man.
Yeah,
you can find anything online to the point where it's actually cheating. To find something in the wild, in the wild, that's fun. That's the magic of toy collecting, I find.
Yeah,
I miss it.
That's a charm and you kind of hint around this in your discussions over the years about your videos of the play motion, how you like getting a toy that's played with, that has a little bit of dirt or has broken pieces sometimes, because now you can just like all bets are off. You don't have to worry at all about what you do with it. And you described in the in your catalog reviews, and when you've talked about toy or modern toy film or whatever, or not cinematography, whatever, photography. There, and you talked about this with Ben in one of the catalog discussion, or Ben mentioned
Big Ben, great guy to chat to, by the way. Lots of fun.
Awesome. I wish he's so fun. Anyway, both of them, Chief and Ben, are great. Anyway, but he said when Chief was talking to him out, he prefers toys looking like toys instead of how some people can shoot them, making them look real, like in their real environment. That you want to look at this and imagine your toys that you can play with like that. Your videos, because they're not brand new out of the box vintage figures or brand new plastic, when you guys do your play motions, it's like kids or adults playing with them, and it happens to be being recorded instead of someone setting up a really nice, stylish, untouched figure in a real environment out in the grass or in the water or whatever. Like it loses some of that real. It has that played with effect that brings that practicality to it, that connection with a kid playing with his toys. I don't have to look at someone filming something very professionally. I'll say professionally. You're monetized. It's professionally done, right? Professionally shot figures being played with in your play motions, and then looking at my figures with broken thumbs or whatever. Like I don't have to have that frustration, and I don't have frustration with your videos, but I'm saying
I'm so ashamed of my broken toys.
But like, because they're worn, it's
world, man. Like, what criterion appeals to you? Because there are professionally shot, gorgeous photographs out there that use clunky O-ringers that have rivets showing and articulation so visibly on display. That's amazing. But it's like putting something that is so clearly a toy in this suspension of disbelief world that everything scales accurately.
Yeah.
And then you've got the guys who do these almost photoreal miniaturizations, like figures that are gorgeous, that have fabric clothing with all the details that
And
are
there's a place for that. It's
imitating
awesome.
true life. They don't even call them head sculpts; they call them portraits because they look like real human beings
Yeah.
with real skin tones. So I think there's a disconnect between like using an O-ring figure in a very realistic background because it's
Yeah.
so evidently a toy,
Yeah.
and yet it's not being shot in a garden. It's being shot in a miniaturized sort of bonsai
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
That said, that stuff is bloody impressive, and I'll shout out my buddy Paul Panfalone. Plastic Battles, amazing. Like I really love. I mean, he builds dioramas in pizza boxes.
Yes.
But he is insistent that he uses O-ring figures.
Yeah.
Same thing with Made Mylar. Like the guys who are leading the charge in sort of G.I. Joe diorama photography are using O-ring figures. They don't dabble with the modern. They don't do the hot toys or the sideshow. They do O-ring, and it's amazing. It's very quaint, and it's also amazing.
That is cool. It's like I said, there's a place for it, and dioramas and photography is one thing, but watching the videos and how you're playing with your toys that they don't look mint, it gives them character for these characters. I think that's awesome. Well,
making entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, it's what I enjoy about it. But I have one other question, then we'll kind of wrap up here. Is Eliot getting free access to your stuff, or are there limitations on what you're letting him see? Is he like eyeing stuff and you're like, no?
It's in full view often enough, Tim. But for whatever reason, he doesn't have a hankering for G.I. Joe yet. And I'm grateful for it because I've had other kids round to the place, and obviously they want to go in there and have a look. And they are like, they're pointing at things that they want me to take down. And I'm like, maybe not that one.
Yeah.
That one's quite fragile. And I hate to make those excuses, but I have to because, a broken toy isn't going to be fun for anyone. Least of all this guy. So I have to draw a line somewhere. But fortunately, Eliot hasn't made me make that hard decision yet. He's very content with the die-cast car collection, which is all over the floor. Like he wanders in there every single morning, takes up 2 cars, and he's good for the next 45 minutes, just like car. So yeah, I've been fortunate in that regard. If he was to point at a G.I. Joe and want it, I'd kind of like skew his point for maybe the pulverizer or like a really manhandled Red Dog action figure or something, like just something that is not Duke with his very fragile crotch, or Baroness, or Zartan, like figures that would, not weather his play as much as something else.
You get your core collection and put them on those bottom shelves for the visitors.
The core have such fragility issues as well. Too.
Oh, they're bad.
But the best thing to do is like a G.I. Joe that already has its crotch broken, because that way you're carefree, man. Like he can manipulate the legs any which way. You can do the splits. It'll just make the T-hook kind of descend a little bit. And stretch the O-ring a bit. But the crotch is already gone, so you're good.
Or give them the modern era stuff, or your at least Rise of Cobra stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that stuff's that's indestructible. There's nothing to do with the Rise of Cobra stuff. They don't even have functioning holsters.
It's terrible. Oh, that's where that broke me for modern era. I was kind of on board until those came out. I'm like, you know what? I'm done.
The decos are so dull that even if you was to like scratch it on the concrete, it could only improve it, right? I mean, they've already got like those black bodysuits have already got like gray weathering on it. So like, yeah, dude, scar that stuff up. It's all good.
Lame.
Take Channing Tatum's face and just
stand
paper down a bit.
Yeah, you've mentioned that. We still
Snake Eyes.
We still have a due conversation to talk about those 2 movies and doing a movie review. I still want to reserve your attention for that sometime because I have good things to say about
them. I have to rewatch them, Tim. Damn it, man. What are you doing to me?
Well, that's the incentive. Anyway, Steve, thanks for your time. Whenever you talk about your collection, your passion for this stuff, it always and you always like just kind of brush on it here and there throughout your podcast, and I always like be like, oh wait, I have a few questions about that topic, and then can things move on. So I like when you have a few minutes to sit, or an hour and 20 minutes to sit down and talk and indulge me on some specificities. The specifics about what you're like, how you treat this stuff. Like, I was curious, like, how did you display it? Were you frustrated? Like, what would you have done different about the dust when you came and expressed that? Are you going to do anything special before you go? I don't have a big collection that I'm like really worried about that, but the maintenance of it's interesting. I'm intrigued by it. And like I said before we started rolling, it could have been about anything. You could have had, Powers of the Force collection you were talking about or whatever. I'd be like, I don't care about those, but tell me about what you do. I'm curious. So I appreciate you take some time and let me.
Well, Tim, I'm absolutely delighted. You just tipped me off, though. I didn't actually finish saying that in terms of dust protection for future, old T-shirts. I'm basically going to clothe my Joe vehicles in a T-shirt because I've got so many bloody T-shirts.
Yeah,
and I don't want to throw them away. And an old T-shirt is always a useful thing, particularly for dust protection. So yeah. I will just have shelves of used T-shirts. At least they'll look that way, and maybe that'll prevent children from wanting to take them down.
So
it's dust protection and child protection.
It's like putting a cover over a car that you're going to put in storage. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
And
Same
literally,
philosophy.
you're putting it over your vehicles. Shoot, that prompted a question.
Let's have it.
I can't remember
what
it was.
For the road.
Maybe I don't remember. Maybe it's gone. It fled. Your dust protected. Oh, I was going to ask you, the vehicles you have hanging from the ceiling, are you going to take those down and cover them as well, or did you leave them like that? Your helicopters and your
the stuff I have hanging from the ceiling, I'm less precious about. It's like a 30th anniversary Sky Striker, which I already loathe. The Power Team Elite Hornets and A10 and the Flanker, the Su-27. Great jets, but they're not G.I. Joe, so I'm less precious about them. They can stay up there. I mean, the undersides is all you're going to see, and that's going to stay dust-free. The top, that'll be absolutely caked in dust. But they're up there. They're not doing any harm.
Yeah, they look cool. I like when you show that in your tour of your collection, and you look at jets, because they're posed very carefully. And I have experience trying to hang. It's so hard to hang a vehicle at an angle where it's like in action. I don't know how you do it. That's a whole different discussion. Like it's tricky to get to hold on. I use fishing wire, and you have the fishing wire plugged in or pinned here, but you have to balance it with one hand while you're trying to tie and pin the other one, and then you have a third one at a different angle. But if it's too short or too tall, it's like not the angle you want. Oh, I hate it.
I would always go with the same lengths, front and back. And I mean, there are ways of them twisting and hitching it so that the front is slightly higher. But yeah, I mean,
that makes sense.
Whatever works for you, Tim. I don't want to mansplain that to you, but it can be done. The problem that I have is my airspace is now fairly limited, and so it just looks, the pattern is way too full. There are too many jets up there and helicopters. I mean, jets and helicopters do not mix. But it's just so crowded that it's not conceivably an actual scene. It's just jets hanging now. It's too tight.
It looks like
some dealer's roof, really, where they just got additional stock in the sky.
Nice. Well, Steve, your collection, your play motions, you're doing the Lord's work, as Kevin Smith would say.
Thanks, buddy. And to you too, man. Thank you. It's an absolute breeze.
I love talking to you. I love that you respond if I contact you with my questions or my ignorance or and I wish I could make your live show more often. I just either forget or don't, whatever. I work.
Dude.
Oh, weird.
You have a life. It delights me that you're able to listen and then have these questions bubbling under.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You satisfy my curiosity at some point when we can set aside some time. but I miss like being there, like having questions either during the show or in the after party. So I appreciate that. That's really cool. But thanks
Always
for
good time for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. It's awesome. Love your collection. Love what you do. And I love your, as always, I love your enthusiasm and the spirit that you have for this franchise. Not just that it exists and it's cool and it's a passion, but that the imagination that you put into it, that the enthusiasm to play with your toys, that you're as a grown man, as a father, that you're like excited and emotional when you bring together your collection with your child. It's awesome. So I connect with that and appreciate it. So you're the best. But Steve, we'll talk again soon. We'll get some movie reviews or something sometime soon. But yeah, thanks again for your time. And anyone can catch Steve on anyone that sees this and doesn't know who you are. G.I. Joburg. I'll put the links in the description below for his podcast and YouTube channel. Check it out. They're freaking awesome. Great guys. Friends, consider friends at this point, but they're amazing. And they're just a good group. It's a good community. And that's what I love about your channel. So thanks again, Steve.
Thanks, pal.
Have a good day. So, anyway, you bet. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll catch you next time on another Wilde interview or a G.I. Joburg episode. We'll catch you later. Thanks, Steve.